Elizabeth Warren has just come out with a new policy proposal, and she is not messing around. Now, it turns out the senator and 2020 presidential hopeful just released a plan to tax rich people called a wealth tax. Now, basically what it would do is it would target and apply to Americans with more than $50 million in assets and tax them accordingly. Now, her announcement came on Twitter, and it came after hours after an economist who advises her told CNBC that he believed the proposal would soon be made official. Now, on her Twitter account, she tweeted, quote, "The rich and powerful run Washington. Here's one benefit they wrote for themselves. After making a killing from the economy they've rigged, they don't pay taxes on accumulated wealth. It's a system that's rigged for the top if I ever saw one." She says, "We need structural change. That's why I'm proposing something brand new. An annual tax on the wealth of the richest Americans. I'm calling it the ultra millionaire tax, and it applies to that tippy top 0.1%. Those with a net worth over $50 million. Now, look, you want to talk about bold policy. That seems pretty bold. I think every billionaire who's seen this is going, oh my God. They probably had a coronary at this point, or their hair's on fire. I mean, now, getting into some more of the details, the economist that apparently had talked to her and has been advising her is Emmanuel Saez. Now, you guys might remember him getting together with Thomas Piketty to create a wealth and inequality report in America. So now, that tax that she's coming up with is projected to apply to less than 0.1% of U.S. households. So, Fox News, you can't say that, oh my God, they're going to tax your wealth if you're making $40,000 a year. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. In fact, this would, as I said, would apply to 0.1% of U.S. households and would raise $2.75 trillion over the next 10 years. So that's a significant amount of money. And it would be a 2% tax on people making around $50 million. Now, people over $1 billion would be taxed at a total of 3%. Wow. So now what makes this different than, say, AOC's proposal to do marginal taxes on the super wealthy? Well, CNBC explains. While the 1% of Americans with the highest incomes received about 20% of the total income of the United States, which would be subject, of course, over $10 million to that income tax from AOC, the top 1% of wealth holders collectively own more than 40% of the nation's total wealth. Now, this is according to a report published Wednesday by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. Now, a wealth tax would not target the income. It would target wealth. So you have over this amount of money, then we are going to tax you on that. Now, the Post has reported, the Washington Post, said that Warren had been advised by Saez and Gabriel Zucman. These are left-leaning economists affiliated with the University of California, Berkeley. Now, they said that this deal would levy a 2% wealth tax on Americans with 50 million plus in assets, and for Americans with assets above $1 billion, it would be 3%, as I mentioned before. Now, the newspaper, citing a person familiar with the plan, reported that Warren's plan would counter tax evasion. Now, how would they do that? So now, of course, the conservative argument is, well, if you try to tax wealth, then billionaires are just going to leave the country. They're just going to leave, they're going to take all their money, they're going to run, and then it's going to filter down to you until there's nobody left to tax. Sort of a ridiculous argument, but nonetheless, Warren actually addresses that in this bill. Now, for one, they would boost funding for the IRS to go after people who are evading taxes. So, more money for IRS enforcement. Not only that, but it would levy a one-time tax penalty on people with more than $50 million who try to renounce their U.S. citizenship. So, oh, hey, you can take your money and run? Well, you're not going to take all of it. We're going to do a tax penalty. If you want to leave America, if you want to stop being an American so you can hold on more to your wealth, well, then guess what? there's a little bit of a price you've got to pay. Interesting. Now, you also have a requirement that a certain number of people who pay the wealth tax be subject to annual audits to make sure that they are paying their fair share. So, look, Elizabeth Warren's a smart person. Whether or not you're still mad at her for, not endorsing Bernie Sanders in 2016, or, talking about how she may be a little bit more establishment friendly than some of the other progressive picks, that's fine, right? But you cannot deny the fact that she is a smart person and that she knows her policy. And that's really important here. So she wanted to make sure that this piece of legislation had some teeth. And remember, she also created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which clawed back billions of dollars from corporations and gave it to the people that those corporations defrauded. This is Elizabeth Warren's wheelhouse. That's why I think she's actually making a really good addition to the stable of Democratic politicians who have joined 2020. So now here's the thing, right? One issue with this, though. It may be unconstitutional. So let me explain. Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution says that no direct tax can be levied unless in proportion to the census of enumeration. The 16th Amendment expanded Congress's power to collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without regard to the census. So it says nothing about taxing wealth or being able to tax wealth. Now, Thomas Piketty, who was an economist, who, again, partnered up with Emmanuel Saez, who helped advise her on this policy, said of this idea, quote, "I realize that this is unconstitutional, but constitutions have been changed throughout history. That shouldn't be the end of the discussion." So, look, he's got a point. So something like this, a wealth tax, would be really, really difficult to implement. I think we would have to actually implement changes to the Constitution. Now, again, that is a really, really high bar to set. So, and a very difficult thing to actually be able to accomplish. That is not something that a president can do in their single lifetime, that I can assume, right? Or their single term. Then again, you never know, right? If you're bold and if you get the right congressional setup, then maybe. I think the best thing, though, you would have to do first, or the only thing you'd be able to do first and pave the way for this, would be to get the money out of politics. If you get corporate and union money out of politics, well, then you stop having millionaires, billionaires, and big corporations being able to influence politicians, so that the politicians will actually have to listen to you. And look, if they listen to their constituents, over 70% of Americans want to tax rich people more. So in the end of the day, you actually really wouldn't have to do this, implement this wealth tax. Nonetheless, what it does is that it starts in a really important conversation. And so I think it's actually a pretty great idea. It's bold. Now, as I said before, Warren's not my first pick for 2020. But, again, I can't help but think at a time where we need bold policy proposals, this is pretty freaking bold. I think she should stick to promoting policy like this. So here's the thing, right? So I'm like, let's be honest. I'm tired of politicians who aren't relatable trying to be relatable. Elizabeth Warren, you are not a relatable person. I am sorry. But you know what you are? You're incredibly smart. You're not AOC, and that's fine. AOC is super relatable, and she's super smart. Elizabeth Warren, you are super smart. You're a policy wonk. You're a teacher, and you're fantastic on economic policy. I would love, actually, to see her serve as Treasury Secretary under a President Bernie Sanders. That's where I would love to see her, right? But look, she's got to stop doing the Instagram videos. I know everybody's doing them. Beto O'Rourke's doing them. It's ridiculous. Pretty soon you're going to have Cory Booker in a bathrobe, right? Yeah, I perish the thought, right? No, stop trying to be relatable and actually put forward good progressive policy. And this is great. Keep doing this. Forget about having a beer on Instagram and start pushing it forward, bold progressive policy just like this. And I think you're going to be fine. I think you're going to start a lot of great conversations on what we can do to help the American people and to promote income and wealth, reduce the levels of income and wealth inequality in America, and actually be able to make opportunity for everyone in this country. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.